The galaxy had never seen humans fight like this before. Against an empire that crushed worlds, annihilated fleets, and claimed the stars as their own, a handful of humans dared to strike first, and they weren't asking permission. Elias Kane stood on the deck of the Resolute, eyes scanning the void where the Zarketh fleet waited. Massive warships drifted like predators among the stars, their weapons primed, their sensors reaching for a weakness. Every pulse of energy, every blinking radar echo, reminded him and his crew of the odds stacked against them. They were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched, and yet humans thrived in the impossible. "This is it," Elias said quietly, letting his words carry across the bridge, more to himself than anyone else. "They think fear will stop us. They think strategy alone will break us. They are wrong." Lieutenant Mara's fingers danced across the tactical console. "Forward scouts report multiple blind zones in their formation, sir. Their flank is weaker than expected." Elias's eyes narrowed. "Perfect. That's where we strike first. Prepare the pods. Stealth modules online. The first strike must be surgical. The Empire won't know what hit them." In the hangar, Marines suited up, exosuits humming with energy, rifles synced to tactical HUDs, drones packed with EMP devices ready to disable shields and weapon arrays. The plan was audacious, bordering on insane. Yet that was exactly what humans did best: turn desperation into advantage, audacity into triumph. The pods launched silently into the void. Each one was a missile of defiance, a bullet of courage aimed straight at the heart of the Empire's pride. The human fleet maneuvered around enemy cruisers, exploiting blind zones, lasers lancing across space with precise coordination. Every move was synchronized, every action deliberate, every heartbeat filled with the singular purpose of survival and victory. Inside the Zarketh flagship, corridors stretched like the veins of a living beast. Energy conduits pulsed with light, drones patrolled methodically, and alien soldiers assumed their technological superiority would be enough. They were wrong. The humans adapted instantly. Using zero-gravity grips, silent step maneuvers, and improvised hacking modules, they bypassed patrols, disabled turrets, and advanced toward critical systems. Every step destabilized the flagship from within, forcing the aliens to react to threats they could neither anticipate nor control. Outside, the human fleet pressed the attack. Fighters darted between massive cruisers, mines detonated with precision, and every strike seemed to anticipate enemy counters before they even occurred. The Zarketh Empire's numerical advantage was irrelevant. Humans had weaponized unpredictability. Every pilot, engineer, and marine was a calculation the Empire could not make, a variable they had ignored. Elias's voice cut through the comms, calm, authoritative, and electric with defiance. "Vega, sweep the port engine access. Delta Squadron, synchronize with internal detonations. All units, maintain formation. Remember, precision is our weapon, chaos is our ally." Vega and her team moved through the inner hull, navigating conduits and maintenance shafts with deadly efficiency. Their objective: destabilize the central power core. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and the ship would collapse before they could escape. But humans thrived on risk. Humans thrived on impossibility. The moment arrived. Charges planted, sequences aligned, the detonations rippled through the flagship. Shields flickered, weapons misfired, and the colossal ship shuddered. The Empire's flagship, the pride of their armada, staggered under the assault. Elias allowed himself a rare, quiet smile. The first strike had landed. Humans had not only survived, they had struck at the heart of the galaxy-spanning empire and left a wound no calculations could repair. Explosions outside illuminated the void, the brilliance of human defiance mirrored across the stars. The Zarketh scrambled, attempting countermeasures, but every movement was anticipated. Every attack, every response was countered by human ingenuity. The fleet, though smaller, moved like a single organism, each pilot, each ship, each human heart synchronized to the rhythm of defiance. Inside, Vega's squad reached the energy conduits. The heat radiated like living fire, the magnitude of the systems overwhelming. Yet humans thrived in extremes. With precision and courage, the squad deployed final charges to ensure the flagship could never recover command. Every pulse, every spark, every careful step reinforced the truth. Humans would not kneel. They would not surrender. They would strike. The detonations lit the flagship from within. It convulsed under human ingenuity. Massive energy flows destabilized, and the command structure faltered. Outside, the fleet pressed their advantage. Lasers cut across void, mines detonated at critical points, and cruisers staggered as humans redefined what a smaller, desperate force could accomplish. The Empire had underestimated humans. They had assumed obedience to logic, fear of overwhelming force, and reliance on predictability. But humans were none of these. Humans adapted, innovated, improvised, and defied expectation. Humans turned weakness into advantage and desperation into triumph. Elias stood on the bridge of the Resolute, hands steady on the rail, hearts synchronized with the pulse of humanity's defiance. The flagship shuddered, systems failing. Explosions tore through its decks. The first strike had landed, and the Zarketh Empire would never be the same. "Status report," he said quietly. The comm officer's voice trembled with relief and awe. "Sir, the flagship, it's failing. Shields offline. Weapons systems offline. Internal detonations confirmed. Human teams inside have neutralized core functions." A chorus of quiet cheers swept across the bridge. Human ingenuity, courage, and defiance had achieved the impossible. The Empire's flagship, once an unassailable symbol of power, now floated crippled among the stars. Elias's gaze swept over the crew. Sweat-streaked faces, wide eyes, hearts pounding. "This is what we do," he said, voice calm and electric with triumph. "We adapt. We survive. And when the impossible stands before us, we strike first." Outside, the stars stretched infinitely, reflecting the fires of human courage. The first strike against the Empire had succeeded. Humanity had made its mark. And across the void, a warning spread: underestimate humans and you will pay the price. The void trembled with the echoes of human audacity. The crippled flagship, massive and imposing moments before, now drifted like a wounded titan, its internal systems flaring and dying under the precision of human sabotage. Outside, the smaller cruisers and frigates of the Empire faltered, unsure of how to respond to a foe that did not fight like any they had catalogued before. Every human maneuver, every strike, every calculated risk seemed to defy the Zarketh understanding of warfare. Elias watched the chaos unfold, a calm in the eye of a storm that had no center. "Keep pressure on the flank," he ordered. "Do not let them regroup. Every second counts. The Empire's arrogance is our ally. Exploit it." Pilots darted between massive capital ships, weaving through energy beams and debris with a grace that could only come from desperate ingenuity. The smaller human fighters, though fragile in comparison, moved like a living organism. They weren't just attacking, they were dictating the rhythm of battle, forcing the Empire to react, to stumble, to reveal weaknesses no algorithm could anticipate. Inside the flagship, Vega's squad pressed deeper. The corridors were a labyrinth, bristling with alien defense drones and patrolling soldiers whose discipline and training were formidable. But humans did not rely solely on firepower. They relied on creativity, on instinct, on the ability to adapt instantly. Zero-gravity grips allowed them to traverse impossible angles. EMP grenades disabled drones in synchronized bursts. Hollow decoys misdirected patrols, leaving vital conduits exposed. Each step was a calculated strike against expectation itself. The central power core loomed ahead, a massive fusion of glowing conduits and humming energy. One wrong move could incinerate the team, but humans thrived under pressure. Vega's fingers moved deftly, bypassing alien security protocols, aligning charges with precision timing. Outside, the human fleet executed coordinated maneuvers that mirrored the chaos within. Mines detonated in cascading sequences, disabling weapon arrays. Fighters executed feints, drawing enemy fire and exposing critical gaps. Every strike, every diversion, every sacrifice was synchronized with the infiltration teams inside the flagship. Humans were not just attacking, they were redefining the battlefield in real time. Elias's eyes flicked across the tactical map. Enemy ships were faltering, their formations breaking as uncertainty spread through the fleet. The Zarketh commanders, once confident, now scrambled to adapt to a foe they could not predict. It was the most powerful weapon humanity possessed, the ability to act without fear, without expectation, without restraint. "Final charge sequence," Vega whispered, her voice steady despite the heat radiating from the conduits. The human team moved in synchrony, planting explosives that would destabilize the flagship's core. The air shimmered with energy, tension so thick it could be sliced with a blade. The detonations began. Light flared inside the ship, followed by vibrations that rattled the massive corridors. Shields flickered and failed. Weapon systems misfired, cascading failures spreading like wildfire. The flagship convulsed under the assault, its once perfect command structure faltering. Humans had struck at the heart of the Empire, and the pain was immediate, undeniable. Outside, Elias coordinated the fleet with precision. Press the advantage. Target exposed weapon nodes. Focus fire on weakened cruisers. Leave nothing intact that can recover. Pilots responded instantly, their instincts honed by years of training and countless improvisations. Lasers tore through armor. Missile barrages disabled engines. The Empire's ships, confident in their superiority, now wavered under the relentless assault of the humans. Back inside the flagship, Vega and her team moved toward the central reactor. Every step brought them closer to the core, every corridor more dangerous than the last. Patrol drones converged, weapon fire igniting sparks along the walls. Yet humans did not falter. They adapted, rerouted, improvised. Each obstacle became an opportunity. Every threat was met with calculated audacity. The final detonation was synchronized across the ship. The core surged with energy, then imploded, sending shockwaves that disabled entire sections of the vessel. Explosions lit the corridors, flinging debris, yet humans pressed forward, ensuring that critical systems could never recover. The flagship shuddered violently, its immense bulk now reduced to a shadow of its former dominance. Elias allowed himself a brief, rare smile. The first strike had not only succeeded, it had shattered the morale of the Empire. Across the fleet, human ships pressed forward, exploiting every opening. The Zarketh command structure was in disarray, unable to coordinate their forces effectively. Humans, though smaller in number, dictated the pace, the strategy. The crew of the Resolute cheered quietly, the sound more electric than loud, more profound than words. Humanity had struck first and demonstrated something no alien calculation could anticipate: courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. Elias spoke to the crew, voice calm, resonant with authority and pride. This is what humans do. We do not yield. We do not kneel. We strike where others fear to act. The galaxy has underestimated us for too long. Let them learn why. Outside, the stars shimmered with reflected energy. The Zarketh fleet was reeling, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. The first strike had succeeded, but the battle was far from over. The humans had shown the galaxy that defiance could be precise, that courage could be lethal, that ingenuity could topple giants. And across the void, a message echoed through the remnants of the Empire. Humanity had arrived, and underestimating them would cost the stars themselves. The crippled flagship drifted like a wounded colossus, but the battle was far from over. The Zarketh Empire, furious at the audacity of humanity, began to reorganize. Smaller vessels split off to intercept fleeing human ships. Energy beams cut across space with deadly precision, and the alien commanders barked orders with a brutality that left no room for mercy. Yet humans thrived under pressure. Every threat became an opportunity, every maneuver a chance to turn disaster into triumph. Elias Kane's eyes scanned the tactical display. The fleet was battered but alive, coordinated by instinct, skill, and determination. Focus fire on the isolated cruisers, he ordered. Do not let them regroup. Keep the pressure relentless. Exploit every weakness. Human pilots responded immediately. Fighters darted through laser fire, weaving around capital ships with precision that bordered on impossible. Mines detonated with perfect timing, crippling engines and disabling weapon nodes. Each strike was a calculated act of defiance, a lesson in human unpredictability. The Empire's algorithms faltered against the fluid, adaptive tactics of humans who refused to be categorized, predicted, or contained. Inside the flagship, Vega's team pressed on. The corridors were a maze of destruction, walls scorched, conduits sparking, drones falling in twisted heaps. Yet the humans moved with relentless purpose. Every step was a statement, every decision a declaration. The Empire would not win by fear alone. They reached the secondary reactor, a massive lattice of conduits and energy nodes. Disabling it would cripple the flagship entirely. Vega's hands worked quickly, synchronizing charges with precision. The countdown began. Outside, the human fleet adjusted. Smaller ships moved to intercept incoming alien squadrons, while cruisers focused fire on the flagship's damaged flanks. Lasers tore through armor, missiles struck with deadly accuracy, and the void lit up with the chaos of war. Every human vessel became a weapon of both offense and diversion, guiding the enemy into traps set by their comrades inside the ship. The charges detonated. Light flared inside the corridors, throwing shadows across walls, igniting fires that raced along conduits. The flagship convulsed under the internal explosions, systems failing in cascading sequences. Shield generators flickered and collapsed. Weapon arrays went offline. The once immense vessel, a symbol of the Empire's dominance, staggered helplessly. Elias allowed himself a rare, satisfied breath. "It's working," he muttered. "They're falling apart. Keep it going." The Zarketh were not idle. Counterattacks intensified. Squadrons attempted to ram the human ships, energy beams seared across the void, and strategic nodes targeted human fighters with precision. Yet humans adapted. Pilots weaved through the firestorm, diverting attention, baiting the enemy into exposed positions, and striking where least expected. Every move was a lesson in audacity, every risk calculated to perfection. Inside the flagship, Vega's team faced the final obstacle, the command core. Heavily guarded, energy fields crisscrossed the chamber, and alien soldiers patrolled with lethal intent. But the humans did not hesitate. Using decoys, EMP pulses, and precise timing, they neutralized threats with efficiency and ingenuity. No human had ever walked a path so dangerous and emerged unbroken, but they thrived in the impossible. The command core loomed ahead, massive and humming with power. Vega planted the final charges, aligning them with the internal system's failure points. Every second stretched into eternity as the countdown ticked down. Outside, the human fleet prepared for the signal. When the charges detonated, the flagship shuddered violently. The central reactor erupted in controlled explosions, sending shockwaves through the ship's hull. Energy conduits failed, weapon systems collapsed, and the colossal structure trembled. The Empire's flagship was crippled beyond repair, and humans had achieved what many had believed impossible. They had struck the heart of the Empire and lived to tell the tale. Across the fleet, humans cheered quietly, pride mingled with exhaustion. The first strike had succeeded, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. The Empire would retaliate with a fury beyond imagination. Every victory carried a price, and humanity had just paid the first. "Prepare for extraction," Elias ordered. "Get every pod back to the Resolute. We can't linger. They'll regroup, and we need to survive to strike again." The pods returned, carrying the infiltration teams and the wounded. The human fleet regrouped, battered but victorious, a testament to resilience, ingenuity, and unyielding courage. Elias looked at the stars, knowing that the first strike had sent a message. Humanity would not be ignored, underestimated, or defeated. The galaxy had been warned. The Empire had faced humans, and the price of underestimation would be written in fire and blood across the stars. But even as the fleet celebrated, Elias knew the war was far from over. The Empire would retaliate, their fleets would strike back, and every human heart aboard the Resolute prepared for the battles yet to come. Humanity had won the first strike. The question was, could they survive the next? The void outside the crippled flagship was chaos incarnate. Wreckage drifted across the black expanse, twisted metal reflecting bursts of laser fire and missile trails. The Zarketh Empire's remaining squadrons surged forward, attempting to regroup, to strike back, to reclaim dominance. Yet humans moved with a rhythm born of desperation and genius. Every maneuver, every evasive action, every calculated strike was perfectly timed. They were unpredictable, relentless, and impossible to contain. Elias Kane stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his jaw tight, eyes scanning the tactical holograms. The flagship was crippled, yes, but the Empire still had the numbers. Keep the fleet tight. Use the debris fields to mass movements. Draw them in. Force them to fight on our terms, he ordered. His voice was calm, commanding, but it carried the weight of unshakable confidence, the kind that spreads silently through a crew and transforms fear into audacity. On the outer decks, fighter pilots executed coordinated flanking maneuvers. Small squadrons weaved between exploding debris, dodging massive fragments while their weapons targeted isolated cruisers. Mines detonated in sequences designed to force enemy ships into traps. Every strike was not just damage, it was a statement. Humans would not yield, humans would not retreat, humans would turn disadvantage into victory. Inside the crippled flagship, Vega's squad navigated the shattered corridors. Sparks flew from damaged conduits, alarms blared, and patrol drones fell in twisted heaps. They moved like shadows, silent and efficient. Each human step was calculated, each decision decisive. They bypassed security locks, hacked alien systems, and planted charges to ensure the Empire's flagship could never recover. The sheer scale of their audacity was staggering, yet was precisely what made humans so dangerous. The first wave of alien reinforcements arrived unexpectedly. Squadrons of sleek attack ships cut across the void with lethal precision, targeting human fighters and capital ships alike. But Elias had anticipated them. Divide and distract. Focus on isolating squadrons. Don't let them support each other. We fight smart, not just hard, he commanded. Human pilots executed maneuvers that defied conventional tactics. Fighters split into multiple vectors, drawing fire away from one another, while hidden cruisers struck at exposed flanks. Lasers lanced across space, missiles streaked with deadly accuracy, and the Zarketh squadrons began to falter. The human fleet, though smaller, was orchestrated with the precision of a single mind, each unit anticipating and responding to threats instantly. Inside the flagship, Vega's squad reached the final control chamber. The alien soldiers guarding it were heavily armored and well-trained, but humans had ingenuity on their side. Using EMP pulses, hollow decoys, and zero-gravity maneuvers, they neutralized threats before the aliens even realized they were under attack. Every soldier, every engineer, every marine was operating on instinct, skill, and audacity, qualities no algorithm could predict. The final charges were aligned. Vega signaled Elias. Core sequence ready. Stand by for detonation. Confirmed. Execute on my mark, Elias replied. Seconds stretched into eternity. Outside, human fighters dodged beams, missiles, and debris, while capital ships absorbed fire and returned it with lethal precision. Inside the flagship, Vega and her team prepared to deliver the final blow. Now Elias commanded. The charges detonated. Light erupted from the core, flames licking through the corridors. Energy conduits failed, weapons arrays collapsed, and the colossal structure trembled violently. The flagship systems went dark one by one, a cascade of failures that crippled the Empire's command vessel. Outside, the human fleet pressed the advantage. Every strike, every maneuver, every act of defiance was synchronized with the chaos within the flagship. Lasers tore through enemy cruisers, mines detonated at critical points, and Zarketh formations collapsed under the relentless assault. The Empire's commanders, once confident and unyielding, now scrambled in disbelief. Their strategy had failed. Their numbers meant nothing against humans who adapted, improvised, and struck with precision. They had underestimated the most dangerous force in the galaxy, a species that would never submit, never retreat, and never yield. Elias turned to the crew. We've struck first, but the fight isn't over. Maintain focus. Prepare for retaliation. The Empire will strike back with everything they have, and we must be ready. The crew nodded, determination burning in their eyes. Humans had survived the first strike. They had inflicted damage beyond expectation. They had proven that courage, ingenuity, and unyielding defiance could turn the tide against impossible odds. But Elias knew the true test was only beginning. The Empire would retaliate. Entire fleets would converge. The war for survival, for humanity itself, had only just begun. And when it did, humans would meet head-on, with brilliance, with courage, and with the audacity to strike where none could imagine. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, reflecting the fires of battle, the sparks of human ingenuity, and the unbroken spirit that refused to bow. The first strike had succeeded. Humanity had sent a message across the galaxy. Underestimate humans, and the cost would be unimaginable. The stars had barely settled after the human strike when the first signs of retaliation appeared. Sensors aboard the Resolute picked up vast fleets emerging from hyperspace, massive ships the likes of which humanity had never encountered. The Zarketh Empire was mobilizing, pouring their wrath across the void in a tide of steel and fire. Elias Kane's jaw tightened. They expected a single strike, he said, voice low and steady. They were wrong. Prepare the fleet. We're about to see just how desperate they can be. The human fleet surged into formation. Smaller fighters skimming along the edges of debris fields, capital ships angled to absorb maximum fire while presenting minimal targets, every maneuver calculated to exploit the enemy's arrogance. Humans had struck first, but now survival demanded brilliance, courage, and relentless adaptability. The first wave of Zarketh warships opened fire. Beams of energy lanced through the void, exploding against shields, tearing hulls, igniting fuel lines. Missile barges streaked toward human cruisers. Yet humans were not unprepared. Lasers intercepted incoming projectiles. Shields rippled and flexed, absorbing damage. Pilots executed maneuvers that defied expectation, darting between massive ships with grace and precision. Inside the flagship, Vega's team worked to secure the remaining systems. The corridors were a storm of sparks, fallen drones, and flickering lights. Patrols surged through the wreckage, but humans adapted instantly. Every obstacle became an advantage. Every danger an opportunity. They moved with calculated audacity, planting charges and rerouting energy flows to further destabilize the vessel. The Empire had underestimated their resolve, and every moment of hesitation would cost the aliens dearly. Elias observed the battlefield. Human ingenuity was on full display. Fighters drew enemy fire away from capital ships, mines detonated in cascades to create new defensive barriers, and the fleet moved as one living organism, predicting and responding to threats before they fully materialized. A massive Zarketh dreadnought emerged from hyperspace, dwarfing every human vessel. Its weapons could obliterate cruisers in a single strike. The fleet tensed, but Elias smiled faintly. They rely on power. We rely on unpredictability. Draw them in, isolate them, and strike where they least expect. The dreadnought fired. Energy beams lanced through the void, destroying a human cruiser. Sparks erupted across its hull, alarms screaming, but human pilots didn't falter. Using feints and coordinated strikes, they maneuvered the dreadnought into a debris field, limiting its mobility while simultaneously targeting its weapon nodes with precise fire. Inside the flagship, Vega's team reached the reactor stabilization systems. They planted charges designed to further cripple the vessel. The countdown synchronized with external attacks. When detonated, the resulting energy surges would render the flagship useless and cripple surrounding enemy formations. Every calculation, every step, every risk hinged on precision and courage. Humans had mastered both in equal measure. The first detonation went off. The flagship shuddered violently. Energy conduits exploded, cascading failures spreading like wildfire. Shields flickered and collapsed. Weapon arrays misfired, sending drones and missiles into chaos. The Empire's flagship, once a symbol of power, was now a fortress of fire and broken machinery, writhing under human ingenuity. Elias pressed the advantage. Target their reinforcement squadrons. Focus fire on their engines. Keep them trapped. Exploit every weakness. Pilots responded instantly, weaving between debris, drawing enemy fire, and executing daring strikes that left the Zarketh fleet reeling. The battle raged for hours, an endless ballet of chaos and precision. Humans were fewer in number, yet every action amplified their effectiveness. They had turned weakness into advantage, unpredictability into strategy, and courage into a weapon more deadly than any missile or energy beam. Vega's team completed their final sabotage. The last systems fell into darkness, the flagship crippled beyond recovery. Explosions rippled through the corridors, forcing the aliens into disarray. The humans retreated in perfect coordination, pods launching from the wreckage and racing back toward the Resolute. Elias watched as the last team returned. Sweat and grime streaked faces, but determination shone brighter than any fear. Humanity had survived the Empire's retaliation, turned it back, and proven once more that ingenuity, courage, and audacity were forces no numerical advantage could overcome. But Elias knew the war had only just begun. The Zarketh Empire would return with greater force, more calculated fury, and fewer mistakes. Humanity had struck first, but the next battle would test every skill, every instinct, every ounce of courage. The stars stretched endlessly before them, indifferent, silent witnesses to human defiance. Across the void, a message resonated. Humanity would not bow, would not kneel, and would not surrender. Underestimate them, and the cost would echo across the galaxy forever. The human fleet surged forward, riding the momentum of their first victories. Every ship, every pilot, every marine aboard the Resolute moved as if bound by a single will: survive, strike, and defy. The Zarketh Empire's counterattack had been fierce, but humans had adapted, turning desperation into brilliance and chaos into weaponized advantage. Elias Kane's eyes scanned the tactical displays. Enemy squadrons converged from multiple directions, but the humans were ready. Divide their focus, he commanded. Isolate, engage, overwhelm. Use the debris fields. Draw them where we want them. Every move counts. Fighter pilots darted along jagged fragments of destroyed ships, weaving through debris with precision born of instinct and courage. Missiles fired in perfect timing, intercepting energy blasts, forcing enemy vessels into exposed positions. Every strike, every maneuver, was a lesson in audacity and ingenuity. The Empire relied on predictability, and humans were unpredictable. Inside the crippled flagship, Vega's squad pushed through the chaos. Fires raged, sparks danced across the corridors, and drones fell in heaps, but the humans moved forward with relentless purpose. Every hallway navigated, every door bypassed, every charge placed was a calculated act of defiance. Humans had turned impossibility into strategy, fear into opportunity, and risk into victory. A massive Zarketh dreadnought veered into the battlefield, intent on annihilating the human fleet. Its weapons blazed with destructive fury, cutting through cruisers and fighters alike. Elias's gaze hardened. Focus all coordinated fire on its engines and weapon nodes. Draw it into the trap. We make the impossible work for us. The fleet responded instantly. Fighters flanked, diverting fire, while capital ships unleashed devastating volleys. Mines detonated to force the dreadnought into a debris field, limiting its maneuverability. Every ship moved as though part of a single mind, predicting and exploiting the enemy's every reaction. Inside the flagship, Vega's team reached the central reactor. The air was thick with heat and tension, every pulse of energy threatening to turn the corridor into a furnace. She synchronized the final charges with the ongoing fleet attack. "Now," she whispered, sending the signal to Elias. The detonations tore through the core. Energy conduits exploded, shields collapsed, and weapon arrays misfired violently. The flagship, once a titan of the Empire, shuddered and convulsed, crippled beyond repair. Outside, the human fleet pressed the advantage, targeting exposed cruisers and isolated squadrons with lethal precision. In the chaos, heroism emerged in countless small acts. A fighter pilot, cut off and outnumbered, diverted enemy fire long enough for a human cruiser to escape. A Marine aboard a pod maneuvered through debris, saving a wounded comrade under relentless fire. Every act, no matter how small, added to the momentum of human ingenuity and defiance. Elias's voice cut through the comms. "Maintain formation. Cover retreat paths. Draw them in further. Every move we make is a message. Humans strike first, and we do not stop." The Zarketh Empire faltered. Their formations broke under the relentless, unpredictable human assault. Algorithms and tactics failed against instinct, courage, and creativity. The human fleet, though smaller, dictated the rhythm of battle, exploiting every weakness and turning disadvantage into dominance. Inside the flagship, Vega's squad finished their final sabotage. Charges detonated across auxiliary reactors and communication arrays. The ship's systems collapsed entirely, leaving the massive vessel a wreck drifting among the stars. The human teams retreated with precision, pods darting through the void, fighters covering their path, and cruisers holding the line against pursuing forces. The battle slowed, but the tension remained. The humans had won a decisive victory, but Elias knew the Empire's retaliation was far from over. Larger fleets, more powerful weapons, and relentless determination would follow. Humanity had survived the first wave and struck back brilliantly, but the war for the stars had only begun. Elias stood on the bridge, watching the stars stretch infinitely ahead, reflecting fires of battle and sparks of human ingenuity. "We've shown them what humans are capable of," he said quietly. "But this is just the beginning. They will return, stronger, smarter, deadlier. And we will be ready." The crew of the Resolute nodded, exhausted but unbroken. Humanity had fought the impossible, turned weakness into advantage, and proven once more that courage, ingenuity, and unyielding determination could defy even the most powerful empire. Across the void, a warning spread like wildfire. Humans had struck first, and the cost of underestimating them would be written in fire and defiance across the stars. The human fleet pressed forward, each ship moving with the precision and audacity that had defined their victories so far. The Zarketh Empire, enraged and disoriented, launched wave after wave of reinforcements, massive warships converging like predators, each one seeking to annihilate the humans who dared defy their dominion. Elias Kane's hands gripped the railing on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes scanning the tactical displays. "Focus on isolating their command units." Every cruiser we disable, every squadron we break, sends a message. Strike with purpose, strike with precision, strike as humans. Fighter pilots weave through beams and explosions, dodging colossal dreadnoughts while targeting engines and weapon nodes with surgical accuracy. Every maneuver defied expectation. Every strike reinforced the truth that humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and unyielding. Inside the crippled flagship, Vega's squad moved swiftly through the final corridors, navigating wreckage and flames with grace and determination. Each step brought them closer to the last critical systems that, if destroyed, would render the vessel entirely inoperable. The alien soldiers defending these points were formidable, but humans did not fight like any enemy they had faced. Using stealth, improvised tools, and calculated boldness, Vega and her team neutralized threats with speed and efficiency, turning risk into advantage. The first wave of detonation charges triggered. Sparks and flames erupted along conduits and reactor nodes. Alarms blared, systems collapsed, and the massive vessel convulsed under the impact. The Empire's flagship, once a symbol of unassailable power, now writhed helplessly. Elias's fleet exploited the chaos. Human cruisers focused fire on weakened flanks, mines detonated to restrict mobility, and fighters drew enemy fire while coordinating strikes that shattered isolated ships. Every action was synchronized, a dance of calculated chaos that left the Zarketh disoriented and reactive rather than proactive. In the midst of the battle, acts of heroism emerged that would be remembered for generations. A fighter pilot, outnumbered and outgunned, drew the attention of a dreadnought long enough for a human cruiser to deliver a devastating strike. Marines aboard pods braved firestorms to rescue wounded comrades, defying impossible odds with determination and skill. Each act reinforced the HFY spirit. Humans would survive, adapt, and overcome through ingenuity and courage. Vega's squad reached the last core access chamber. The air shimmered with energy, every pulse a reminder of imminent danger. She planted the final charges, synchronized perfectly with external attacks. The countdown began, echoing across the crippled corridors. Outside, Elias coordinated the fleet with unwavering calm. Hold positions. Draw them into the kill zones. Strike now and leave no chance for recovery. Pilots executed maneuvers with lethal precision, guiding enemy ships into zones where explosions and concentrated fire would devastate their formations. The charges detonated. Light and fire erupted inside the flagship, tearing through conduits, collapsing systems, and throwing alien defenses into disarray. Shields failed, weapons misfired, and the colossal vessel staggered helplessly. The Empire's most powerful ship, their pride and command center, was reduced to a drifting wreck. The human fleet pressed the advantage, relentlessly. Every cruiser, every fighter, every pod moved as if guided by a single will, exploiting chaos to maintain pressure. The Empire faltered under the combined force of human courage, ingenuity, and relentless audacity. Elias allowed himself a rare, quiet smile. The first strike was ours, the retaliation survived, and now the victory is secured. Humans have proven the impossible is always possible. The crew of the Resolute exchanged weary but triumphant glances. Exhaustion mingled with pride, fear replaced by confidence. Humanity had struck first, survived overwhelming retaliation, and emerged victorious through brilliance, courage, and defiance. But Elias knew the galaxy would not forget this day. The Zarketh Empire had been humiliated, and their response would be merciless. The first strike had been a statement, a warning. Humanity could not be underestimated. The stars stretched endlessly, indifferent yet illuminated by the fires of battle. Human ingenuity had turned despair into triumph, fear into opportunity, and chaos into victory. Across the void, the message was clear. Humanity had arrived, and their defiance would echo across the galaxy. Even as the fleet regrouped, the humans knew this was only the beginning. The Empire would strike back, harder and faster, and every human heart aboard the Resolute prepared for the wars yet to come. Elias looked at the crew, determination burning in his gaze. We've shown them who we are. The next battle will test us even more. But we are human and we do not yield. We adapt, we fight, and we will prevail. The void was silent now, save for the hum of surviving engines and the distant flashes of energy from crippled ships. Humanity had won the first strike, and the galaxy would remember this moment. They had taken the impossible, faced it head-on, and reshaped the stars with courage, ingenuity, and unbreakable spirit. The void was eerily quiet after the storm. Crippled Zarketh vessels drifted like fallen giants, explosions smoldering across their hulls. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, moved carefully among the wreckage, retrieving pods, tending to the wounded, and surveying the battlefield. The first strike had ended, but its consequences rippled across the stars. Elias Kane stood on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes scanning the shattered remnants of the Empire's forces. He allowed himself a moment to breathe, to absorb the weight of what had just occurred. Humanity had faced a foe that dwarfed them in every way, and yet they had survived, adapted, and triumphed. The impossible had been made real. Status report, Elias ordered, voice calm but tinged with fatigue. Sensors flickered across the displays. Casualties were few, given the scale of the battle. Systems were damaged but operational. Pods with human teams had returned safely. Enemy losses were catastrophic, capital ships destroyed, squadrons decimated, command structures crippled. Humanity had struck first and delivered a blow that would be remembered for generations. Vega approached, her exosuit scorched but functional, her squad accounted for and ready. All charges detonated. The flagship is beyond repair. Secondary systems are offline. Enemy morale is collapsing. Elias nodded, a faint smile crossing his face. Excellent work. Humans have proven that ingenuity, courage, and audacity outweigh numbers and technology. Today, we've written our mark across the stars. Yet beneath the triumph lay an unspoken truth. The Empire would not forget this defeat. They would regroup, strategize, and strike back harder than ever. Every human heart aboard the Resolute understood the cost of underestimation. Humanity had made a statement, but the war for the galaxy had only begun. The surviving fleet formed a protective perimeter around the wreckage and the drifting pods. Engineers and Marines worked tirelessly to repair critical systems, recover what they could from destroyed vessels, and ensure that every human who had fought today would live to fight another day. Humanity had survived the impossible because of unity, courage, and ingenuity. Every action had been deliberate, every risk calculated, every act heroic. Elias looked at his crew, pride swelling within him. We've struck first, survived retaliation, and inflicted damage beyond expectation. Remember this moment. Remember why we fight. The galaxy will see that humans are not to be underestimated. We adapt. We survive. We prevail. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, indifferent yet illuminated by the fires of battle. The Zarketh Empire had been humiliated, their pride shattered, their forces weakened. Humanity had achieved what many deemed impossible. They had struck first and emerged victorious against an overwhelming foe. The victory was theirs, but Elias knew it was temporary. The Empire would return. They would strike harder, with more calculated fury, and the humans would be tested again. Yet one truth remained unshakable. Humanity would never bow. They would never submit. They would fight, adapt, and defy expectations with every breath, every thought, every heartbeat. As the fleet regrouped and the last pods were recovered, Elias allowed himself a final glance at the stars. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "The Empire will come, and when they do, humanity will be ready." The crew of the Resolute exchanged weary but determined glances. Today, they had survived the impossible. Today, they had proven that courage, ingenuity, and defiance were weapons more powerful than any fleet, more formidable than any technology. The galaxy had been warned. Underestimate humans, and the cost would be written in fire across the stars. With engines humming and systems repaired as best as possible, the fleet set a course for the next encounter. The first strike had been a triumph, a demonstration of human ingenuity and courage. But the war had only just begun. Humanity had survived. Humanity had won. And humanity would rise again, stronger, smarter, and unstoppable. The stars stretched infinitely ahead, a silent witness to the defiance of one small species that refused to be crushed, ignored, or forgotten. Across the void, the echoes of human courage resonated. This was humanity. This was their fight, and they would never stop.